Hey, Pedro.
What if events had unfolded differently in the MCU timeline? What if Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, had killed Peter Parker on Coney Island? How would the MCU timeline unfold if one little small change ended differently? What if the Vulture killed Spider-Man in Homecoming? In the original timeline, Peter Parker and Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, were fighting after the Vulture destroyed the building support columns, leaving Peter to die. Peter would then save himself later when the Vulture's suit was damaged and exploded. However, in this fanfiction timeline, Peter and the Vulture were fighting in the sky after the plane was intercepted and crashed on the beach near Coney Island. As they were fighting near midair, the Vulture stuns Peter, and Peter went flying down towards the beach. As Spider-Man didn't have his suit on, his webs ran out at the same time. He fell into the ground below and was impaled in the chest by one of the shrapnel from the plane. The Vulture watched as Spider-Man was killed and immediately fled the scene. Later, Happy Hogan and his crew came on the scene and were shocked to see Peter's corpse lying at the beach. He dropped to his knees as he loved Spider-Man. Happy then contacted Tony Stark and informed him of the devastating news. Tony fell into depression and was furious with the Vulture. He was unsure of what to do and blamed himself for the mistake of confiscating his suit. If only he didn't confiscate it, Peter would be able to survive the fight with the Vulture, and Pepper would try to consult Tony but failed. Aunt May was also devastated when she heard the news that Peter had been killed. She blamed Tony for letting Peter do everything behind her back and for not stopping him. The news was then released and everyone found out that Peter Parker was Spider-Man as they made the connection that he was killed on the beach near Coney Island. The local news covered on his death and everyone was furious and devastated with the Vulture. The Vulture, meanwhile, has fled before telling Liz and her mom that he will no longer be with them and that they should flee before things got worse. They refused to believe him, and then the Vulture fled with the new Chitauri technology. Tony, meanwhile, was still grieving from the death of Peter, and he decided to track down the Vulture. He also started building more of his Iron Legion and developed them everywhere. The Vulture knew that everyone would be hunting him down, and he has grown into an Avengers level threat. He started upgrading his Vulture suit and was more enhanced powers from the Chitauri technology. As he was hiding, he sensed something was amiss and he looked up. Missile barrages started raining on his area and the Vulture knew that Iron Man found him. Iron Man and the Vulture eventually clashed together. The Vulture knew that he was not matched with Tony's tech and decided to flee, but a furious Tony started punching and shooting him. The Vulture suit was eventually destroyed, leaving Toomes alone. Tony then aimed his repulsor ray at Toomes' heart and vowed to kill him. He had only recently learned the truth of his parents and now he lost Peter, which he treated like his own son. At the same time, Pepper managed to get into Tony's comms and told him not to be a murderer. She said that Peter wouldn't want him to kill the Vulture in that way, and Tony stood down and knocked the Vulture out instead. The authorities came and the Vulture was arrested. His identity as Adrian Toomes was revealed to the world, causing Liz and her family to be rescinded by everyone. They both eventually relocated elsewhere. Tony ended up returning home and continued to create even more stronger Iron Man suits. He has grown into a colder and more serious person. Some aspects of the original Infinity War timeline will remain the same, where Thanos intercepts Thor's ship and slaughters all of the Asgardians while gaining the power and the Space Stone. Doctor Strange informed Tony about the impending arrival of Thanos and his Black Order. Tony vowed that he would not repeat the same mistake again as with Peter and deployed his Iron Legion while Cole Obsidian and Ebony Maw were battling him, Strange and Wong. Strange would be caught like the original timeline by Ebony Maw, and Tony would sneak into Ebony's spaceship. Everything else that happened with the Guardians of the Galaxy and Steve Rogers would play out the same. Aboard the spaceship, Tony would come up with a way to defeat Ebony Maw. He knew that his tech might not match Ebony's magic, and Tony tried to think like Peter and eventually defeated Ebony in the same manner as in the original timeline. Later, Tony and Strange would meet with Quill, Drax, and Mantis, and they all met on Titan. The heroes would struggle to fight against Thanos, as Spider-Man was a key element while holding off Thanos himself. As they were battling with Thanos and trying to remove the gauntlet from his hand, the absence of Spider-Man was clear. The Mad Titan easily defeated the heroes, and when he sent the moon crashing on the Titan, Mantis was killed as Spider-Man was not there to save her. Thanos would wound Tony, but Strange would then offer the Time Stone in exchange for Stark's life. Stark was dumbfounded that he would rather give up Tony than the Time Stone. With the Time, Soul, Reality, and Power Stone, Thanos went to Earth like the original timeline. On Earth, Tony has dispatched his Iron Legion beforehand to support Rogers and the rest at Wakanda. The blip would happen as normal and half of the population would be wiped out. Stark and Nebula remain standing on Titan, with Banner and the rest of them staying alive. Captain Marvel would later save Tony and Nebula and brought the spaceship back to Earth. Tony would reunite with Pepper, and he was devastated again that he could not defeat Thanos even with his Iron Legions on Earth. Rogers said that everyone tried and failed, so there was nothing to be ashamed of. They would eventually behead Thanos like in Endgame, but the major difference would be that when you fast forward 5 years from now, when Ant-Man returned from the quantum realm, Tony Stark would refuse to help him for the time travel plan. In the original timeline, he did the time traveling because he wanted to bring back Peter, but in this timeline, Peter was already long dead. As a result of those that survived the blip and continued to live on in half of the Earth that was snapped remained snapped, Tony would continue to live a long and happy life with Pepper and his daughter Morgan. However, he always remembered the boy who became the Amazing Spider-Man. And that is going to be, what if the Vulture had ended up killing Peter Parker in Spider-Man Homecoming? I think eventually Tony Stark wouldn't have time traveled, and when you end up seeing that Pepper and Tony scene, I do believe that Tony Stark would throw the technology into the river and would never talk about it again. It's a really dark ending because Tony Stark might be able to time travel and save Peter in Homecoming, but I ended up changing it just a little bit to keep it with the actual timeline where the blip still happens, but you never really know, like, would Tony go back in time to save Peter, or would he end up going back in time to defeat Thanos? So there is some really possibilities that I could have done with this fan fiction, but then again, let me know in the comments down below what you think of what if the Vulture had killed Spider-Man, and if you guys did enjoy this MCU What If, do make sure to subscribe, like, share, and turn your notifications on so you and your friends are all up to date with the latest content. But anyways, as always, guys, thanks for tuning in and have a fantastic day.